Hello everyone and welcome back to the Coding Amateur. In this video, I will install Directus on my VPS, which is managed by Coolify. And once the installation is successful, I would be able to log into the Directus Data Studio, which you can see here by this interface. Once I put in my credentials and sign in, I have access to the full feature set that Directus offers. Okay, so that's the plan for today. There are two ways in which we can install Directus on the VPS. In this video, we're going to look at the first way, which is simpler. I think using the word simpler is not the best. It simply means that we can install it using less steps. The second method will require us to do a little bit more in order to get it up and running. All right, so that's the difference. I wouldn't say one is harder than the other, but one way would take longer than the other. All right, so having said that, let's dive into the task at hand. Now, if you're here for the first time, I would recommend that you go back and look at my previous videos before going forward, because we are building on top of what we would have done in the previous videos. Okay, for those who are here continuing on with me, you should have Coolify set up on your VPS, and we're going to start from right where we left off. So in your Coolify dashboard, if you click on dashboard, you will notice that you have no projects. So the first thing we'll need to do is add a project. So let's click add. We're going to give the project a name. We are just going to call this demo backend. That's the name of our project. And a description, something brief, nothing fancy. So this is the back end for our right. This is the backend for Directus instance. Continue. Okay, so now that our project is created, we need to add a resource to that project. So let's click add resource. The resource that we are going to add is under applications. It's going to be Docker based, and we're going to select Docker Compose Empty. Right, so what we have here is an empty Docker Compose file. And what we need to put in this is the configuration. Where would we get that from? We could write it from scratch, but an easier way would be to go to Directus. All right, so let me back up a bit. If you go to directus.com, so let me just back up. Directus.com, you click on Docs, then on Hosting, Self-Hosting, Deployment. And then you would have here an example of a Docker Compose file. We will copy that, and we're going to paste that configuration into our blank Docker Compose file. Okay, so having done that, we have a few changes to make. So first off is the image here. It says here replace with version. So right now, as I'm recording this video, the latest version is 12.2.0. So that's what we are going to go with. We have some other changes to make. We have here secret. You could replace this with your secret. All right, I'm going to leave it as is. I'm not going to change it just yet for this tutorial. What I will change, however, is my admin email. Now, this email and password would be the email and password you use to log into your Directus Data Studio. All right, so use your email. I'm going to use mine. And I'm now going to type in my password. Okay, so that's it for now. And I'm going to click on save. All right, so it has added the services that we need to get Directus up and running. You would notice that we have our Directus instance 12.2.0. We also have the PostgreSQL database, and we also have our cache. Now, where did these come from? So if we go back to our edit compose file here, and you look at the configuration, you will see that in the configuration, we have everything that was needed to set up the PostgreSQL database. So we have database here and the configuration for it. We also have our cache, which is the health check here. And if we scroll further down, you'll see Redis, cache auto purge, cache store, which is Redis, and our URL to access our Redis cache. Okay, so that's what the configuration did for us. And this is the fastest way, in my opinion, to set up Directus on Coolify via the Docker Compose file. So you would have seen that all three would have been set up automatically. Okay, now we are not just done as yet. Under networks, we need to check this box, connect to predefined network, so that our Directus instance is able to connect with the Coolify network as well. Okay, so that is done. Now under Directus, we have settings here. We want to click settings. And under domain, we want to put here the domain that we will use to access the data studio. So we're going to use HTTPS. I'm going to use CMS. That's the subdomain, and then my main domain, which is demo vps.xyz. Okay, so spelled that wrong. It's going to be demo. Okay, so that is the domain. Now remember, in our previous video, I would have mentioned that traffic, which is the reverse proxy that we're using, once it sees HTTPS, it will automatically initiate the configuration for Let's Encrypt in order to provide an SSL for our domain, or this subdomain rather. So we want to use HTTPS here. Also, in a previous video, when I was setting up my DNS record for this domain, I used a wildcard, which meant that any subdomain that I create will automatically be covered by that DNS record. So I don't need to go now and create a separate record for cms.demo-vps.xyz. That wildcard will cover all subdomains that I create. Okay. So again, if you are here for the first time, please look at the previous videos because I covered all these things and I'm not going to go into any detail in this video. All right, so having done this, let's click save. We're going to go back. Okay, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to the Docker Compose file, so edit compose file. And where it says public URL, I'm going to add it here as well. HTTPS. Okay, all right, and let's hit save. I'm going to close off the modal. And now I'm going to deploy. Confirm. And we wait. Okay, so now that this is done, let's close off our modal, and you should see our service says it's running healthy, and you should see healthy, healthy, and healthy. Okay, so with that done, we should be able to click on links, and we will see our subdomain created to access our data studio. We should be able to click on this and go to our data studio. Okay, now it's saying no available server. Now why is that? You will notice that our service now has a status of unhealthy. When we first completed the setup of this service, it did say healthy, but now it has changed. Now, what has caused that? So first of all, let's check our VPS to see if there is anything wrong with our containers themselves. So let's go to our VPS, SSH into your VPS, and we will run docker ps. Okay, so we are seeing here that all of our containers are up. My Directus container is up, and it's saying it's up since for the last 15 minutes, but it is unhealthy. So we need to understand why this is unhealthy. So we need to diagnose what this problem is. To do that, we're going to need a package which you will need to install, and that package is JQ. So you would have to install that sudo apt install JQ. Okay, I already have it installed on my system, so I'm not going to do that again. You should install it, and once you have that installed, we will now be able to run the next command. Okay, and this command requires us to copy the name of the Directus container, which is right here, and paste it in this section here. So I'm going to delete this and copy my Directus container and hit enter. Okay, and we notice from the output it says wget can't connect to remote host, connection refused. Now this is coming from our Docker Compose configuration. So let's go back to that file and look for that line with wget. So wget is trying to hit this point, but it's being refused. Now, why is that? Well, the problem surrounds this word here, localhost. The problem with localhost in a Docker container is that it has to be resolved first. In a Linux container, localhost typically maps to two addresses at once. So localhost resolves to 127.0.0.1, which is the IP version 4, and it also resolves to : 1, which is IP version 6. So when wget looks up localhost, the system's resolver hands back both addresses, and wget tries them in whatever order it receives them, which on many Linux Alpine-based images tends to prefer IP version 6 first. Now, our server started on 0.0.0.80:8055. So you would notice here, if you look right here on under ports, you would see that it's running on 0.0.0.0.8055. Now, what that means is that 0.0.0.0 is the listen on every IPv4 interface address. Directus never opened an IP version 6 socket at all. But when wget tries : 1, 8055 first, there's genuinely nothing listening there. And the OS doesn't wait around wondering. It immediately sends back a rejection, which is exactly why you got an instant connection refuse rather than a slow timeout. A timeout would mean something was reachable but not responding. A refusal means the OS itself said nothing's here right away. So localhost will always cause the health check to fail. However, we could sidestep the whole problem by replacing localhost with 127.0.0.1, which is the actual IP address of localhost. Now, since Directus never uses IP version 6, we could safely replace localhost with 127.0.0.1. And that should resolve our issue. So I'm going to click save. All right. I'm going to close off this modal and I'm going to restart the service. Confirm. And we will wait. Okay, and that is done. So now it's saying starting unknown and then it flashes to running healthy. So let's go back to our VPS. Let's clear. And let's try Docker PS again. Let's just make this full screen and it's saying health starting. So we'll give it a couple of seconds again. And then we try Docker PS and see if it comes up healthy as well. Okay, you'll notice that it says healthy. All right, and that is our Docker container, sorry. So it's saying healthy. I'm going to refresh this again. Okay, and it's still saying healthy. So I'm going to now click on this link here and let's see what happens. Now, for those of you who would have gotten a not secure error in your URL, what you may have to do, you would have to clear the cache in your browser, maybe for the last 7 days or within 24 hours, and it should fix that error. Because what is happening is the first time when you may have tried to access the Data Studio before the error we got, your browser would have cached the URL when it failed. And so you need to clear that in order for it to come up with the proper HTTPS URL. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So if when you come to your domain, your subdomain, and you are still seeing not secure, just clear the browser cache. Okay, and that should fix it. But you should be able to see your subdomain secured with HTTPS, and you should now be able to enter your credentials here. So let's try that. I'm going to sign in. Okay. So when you sign in for the first time, it's asking for a license key. Now, no need to panic. The license key is free. Now, before, Directus never requested a license for the free version, but with the latest version of Directus, you need a license key, which it is still free if your revenue is under 5 million and you have less than 50 persons employed. And you get this license under the Open Innovation Grant. So where would you get this license? So Go to directus.com/OIG, and we have the grant application. Fill it out and follow the steps. Now, one thing to note, if you come to this drop down and your country is not here, select a country that is close to your region. That's the best you could do in order to get a free license. Once you follow the steps, fill out everything, they will send you an email with your license key, and you will come back and you can click here. I have a license key, and you can enter your license key. Okay, so this is my license key, and I'm going to click save. All right, so I need to put in my address. As the owner, I need to put in my email address. So I'm going to do that now. Right, I accept the terms of the Directus MSCL 1.0 GPL and data processing agreement. Yes. Send me product updates and release notes. You could click yes. I'm not going to click that right now, and I'm going to click set owner. All right, and having done that, I have total access to all of the features that Directus offers. Now, if you did not put in that that key or that license key, you would only have access to limited features within Directus. So you need to put in that key in order to access the full feature set of Directus. So that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And this is the first method in setting up Directus on Coolify. Now, why would you want to use this method? So think about small projects, nothing too intensive, nothing that would require much resources. This setup would be ideal. If, however, you're building an app that you want to put in production and it would require more resources and may require you to scale it, then we'd have to install this another way. And when we come to that in the next video, you will understand why. So thanks again for coming on. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.